we need to
men.
reach out. We need to reach out to them as well, right? We've got 10. So we'll talk about ladies as well. I mean, I've got it all written down. It's just how much I remember when we're on air. Assalamu alaikum. This is Sabiha. You're listening to Ramadan FM, Ramadan Radio, 87.7 FM. You'll notice it's not Fatima in the seat here. This is the Community Takeover show, and I have got Molana Abdul Majeed here with me in the studio. Unfortunately, Fatima's not feeling very well, so if we can all remember her in our duas, that would be absolutely amazing. So going back to today's show, it's the Community Takeover show, and I've got Molana Abdul Majeed here with me, and we are going to be talking about Poland, Islam in Poland. The kind of historical elements of Polish Muslims, but we're also going to be talking about Polish Muslims here in Leicester. I am just going to give you a text message number, so 077 488 55055. So if you are Polish and you are Muslim and you're in the community and you want to contribute and you want to get involved, or if you have any questions for Brother Abdul Majeed, please do message them in. So Brother Abdul Majeed, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the studio.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Alhamdulillah, this is our opportunity to learn a little bit more about yourself and about your community. Before we talk about kind of Islam in Poland, do you want to say a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey to Islam? Because we spoke earlier just before the show, and although you were born and raised in Poland and you've been in Leicester since 2007, you weren't always Muslim. So do you want to say something to the listeners about your journey?
Yeah, that's right. So, as mentioned, I was born in Poland. I came to UK when I was 17.
Okay.
I moved to Leicester a couple of years later for university. That was in 2010, and I'm here ever since.
Okay. And is Islam something that you were aware of when you were in Poland?
No, really. Actually, as far as I remember, I kind of started researching more when I moved to the UK. So I accepted Islam when I was 18.
Okay,
so,
mashallah.
Yeah, so when I moved to Leicester, I moved here specifically because I knew there's madrasas and the Islamic environment. So that's the reason why I chose university in Leicester.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah.
So how do you go from being in Poland to being in the UK to deciding to be in Leicester, and sort of, you know, where does Islam feature in all of that?
Well, I accept Islam, mostly through research, through books.
Okay, and research is something that we're going to talk about now. So I want you to talk a little bit about kind of Islam in Poland, because I did a little bit of research and I found out there's only 0.1% of the population of Poland is Muslim. But actually, Islam in Poland goes back a long way, right?
A very long time. It is much longer than people realize. Even most Polish people don't know about it.
Mm-hmm. So go on, brother, tell us a bit more.
Most likely, most Polish Muslims don't know about it.
Okay, so go on. When did Islam first come to Poland?
So even before we go to Poland, we'll go next door.
Okay.
To Russia.
Okay.
The first person who that we know of that accepted Islam in the lands which are nowadays occupied by Slavic people, whether it's Poland, Russia, Ukraine, and also they were actually in an area which was known as Volga, Bulgaria, which is today known as Tatarstan,
okay.
and it's an area of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And the king of that area sent a message to the Abbasid Khalifa in early 10th century. So it's only about 200, 300 years after after Hijrah.
MashaAllah.
Which is he wasn't even bordering any Muslim countries, which is amazing. The Khilafah was like 1,000 miles away from that area, and he was sent an ambassador from Baghdad.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Ibn Fadlan. There's a famous movie about him with
part of our research
about 20 years ago or something.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, this person Ibn Fadlan, he wrote a book. I forgot the title of it. It's a very interesting book actually, about his travels from Baghdad through Persia, through all sorts of lands of the north, where he met Vikings. Because at that time Russia was it was inhabited by a lot of Viking tribes and all sorts of very, very strange things were happening there.
Okay, warrior culture, I'm imagining.
Warrior culture, Turkic tribes. That was before the Turkish tribes were even Muslims.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Before all of the Turkish tribes that we have today, there was no Turks in Anatolia. And he was traveling through all of these Turkic tribes, all the way to Volga, Bulgaria. And that was in the year 922.
Mashallah. And was this with the message of Islam? Is that what he was bringing?
That's right, yeah. He was specifically invited, by the king of Volga, Bulgaria to teach them about Islam, how to build a mosque, how to build a minaret. They specifically wrote it in a letter. Yeah. And that was, interestingly, that was 66 years before Kievan Rus accepted Christianity.
Okay.
So before even Christians arrived in what's nowadays Ukraine and Russia, there was already Muslims in there for 60-something years.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. Moving a little bit towards the west, towards, I think everyone should open a map in front of them. Yeah. Map of, Eastern and Central Europe.
Yeah, my geography is not great for that part of the world, but okay.
Anyway, so in the first actually historical mentions of Poland are by travelers from Muslim lands.
Oh wow!
This is before any official chronicles made by Christians from Polish background or that area. So in the year 962, 61 more or less, there was a person called Ibrahim ibn Yaqub, and he was a Jewish traveler from Al-Andalus.
In Spain?
From Spain, yeah, from the Islamic Spain. And the Jewish travelers and Muslim travelers as well around that time, they used to travel all the way to Europe to the Baltic Sea to buy amber and other goods and bring them back to Spain.
So was this part of the trade that they did, and is that how kind of Islam was spreading at that time?
That's right. That's why even those days, people in Central Europe, in Germany, obviously they used to travel through what's nowadays France, Germany, Czech Republic, Poland. They traveled on camels, interestingly.
All the way through Europe?
All the way to Poland. Okay,
that's fascinating.
From Spain.
Fascinating.
Yeah, which is something, those days especially must have been something quite shocking.
Would have been a spectacle, seeing camel. We don't see camels in Europe now, but that would have been.
People never knew. They wouldn't have known what that is.
Absolutely.
Very strange type of horse, but.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we know about it because this travelers, they wrote a chronicle, which was presented to Khalifa al-Hakam II of Spain in year 962.
Wow.
Which is a long time ago.
So is this what you're fascinated by? Is this where you have learnt about your own history?
Definitely, yeah. As I said, most Polish Muslims, even those people who have accepted Islam, even those people who have been Muslims for a long time, most of them have no idea that Islam actually goes such a long way in our own country.
No, this is it, absolutely, and this is your opportunity to let other people know about it as well.
Yeah. See, and a little bit later, going another 400 years, nearly,
14th century,
to 14th century, a lot of people have heard of Amir Timur, and Timur was a ruler of Central Asia. He was a Turkic ruler. He used to call himself a son-in-law.
Okay.
Of Genghis Khan.
Okay, and everyone's heard of Genghis Khan.
Yeah. So Genghis Khan, obviously, he was a ruler of Mongolia, one of the largest empires in the world at that time. But Timur came several generations later, maybe 3 generations later or so. And he was a ruler of most of Central Asia, was nowadays Uzbekistan, all the way till Afghanistan, Pakistan. And on the other side, on the western side, there was other branches of what used to be the Mongol Empire, which after Genghis Khan passed away, they divided into several separate states, which were kind of working together, kind of supporting each other. Some of them were fighting with each other, and so on. So during 14th century, there was a person called Toktamish, and Toktamish was a ruler of. Well, he actually united 2 of those states, the Blue Ord and the White Ord. And he created something called Golden Ord. Yeah, Golden Ode is much more famous. A lot of people have heard of it. It was very large area spanning from today's eastern Ukraine through Kazakhstan. So it was a very large area.
And were they spreading Islam at that time? Were they
Yeah.
Muslims, or were they fighting? What was the?
At that time they were already Muslims.
Oh wow!
So yeah, quite soon it was a grandson of Genghis Khan who actually accepted Islam. He was a Khan of the Golden Ode, but as I said, later they divided into smaller countries, and Toktamish was the one who united those two. But Toktamish's problem was he went into conflict with Timur, and Timur was the most powerful person around that time, around that area. So what happened? Timur sent army all the way from Bukhara, from today's Uzbekistan, to go after Toktamish. Toktamish had to run away. Yeah? And he ran away to his neighboring country, which was Lithuania. And Lithuania and Poland had the same relationship as Scotland and England.
So love, hate, sometimes friendship, sometimes
sort of,
not.
Well, sort of, actually. With Poland and Lithuania, there was less wars than with Scotland and England, I suppose. But at that time, the Queen of Poland, she married a Grand Duke of Lithuania. And since then, middle of 14th century, more or less, you could say that Poland and Lithuania became one country. Yeah.
Right, okay.
All the way till 19th century. Almost, quite recently. But anyway, Toktamish actually had to run away all the way from Golden Ode till Lithuania. And he received sort of asylum. He became a refugee in Lithuania. The Grand Duke of Lithuania, whose brother was a king of Poland at that time, he gave him asylum. He gave him right to settle, to marry Polish women who were Christian women, already in 14th century.
Okay.
And since then, Muslims have continuously lived in the lands of Lithuania and Poland.
But not very, would you say very prominently, or would you say not so much?
To be honest, there have always been relatively small community. However, since then, since 1410, there was a very famous battle, a battle of Grunwald. Everyone in Poland knows that battle because it was one of the biggest battles of early 14th century, at least in Europe. The main side in the battle was Teutonic Order.
Okay.
Which kind of came when they came back from Crusades. They settled in what's nowadays northern Poland, on the shores of Baltic Sea, and they were Germans. And Polish people and Germans, we always had problems.
Okay, fair enough.
Even before then.
Before the war, okay.
Yeah, even before 14th century. Since that's what happens to neighbors, unfortunately.
The fallout sometimes.
Yeah. So Poland was fighting Teutonic Order for many, many years, and the biggest battle around that time was the Battle of Grunwald in 1410. Why is this important? It's important because that battle, it wasn't just Poland and Lithuania taking part. They also
invited or got involved with?
They invited their neighbors, from all sorts of different countries, which also Crimea.
Okay.
Crimea, Golden Ode was a Muslim country, which was amazing at that time, because that was the only Christian country in that we know of that would basically become friends with Muslim countries and their neighbors. They also invited the soldiers from the Khanate of Kazan, which is today's Tatarstan. Again, they used to be Volga, Bulgaria before.
Yes.
But that which is nowadays part of Russia. But we know that some troops, it wasn't small as well. It was a couple of thousand of people who drove all the way from Kazan to Poland to fight in that war. So
and did they settle? Did they go back? What happened?
Some of them, the soldiers of Toktamish, the one who settled in Poland, his son, Jalaluddin, he was already living in Poland. And it wasn't just those two, Toktamish and his son. It was the whole troop but around 10,000 people that we know of. And all of them have settled in Poland in various different areas. And interestingly, there's still names of villages and names of areas and places that are named after them. Like, for example, in my city of Lublin, there's an area called Tatary.
Okay, making reference to the history.
Exactly, because that area was a home to a village of Tatars who were Muslims, and this is going back to 14th century, 700 years. And as I said, there's nothing, no mosques, no buildings, no nothing.
Well, did you know about all this when you were growing up?
No, really. Actually, we knew about the names. We knew that Tatars were invading these places and they were coming and whatever, but we never actually realized that they lived there.
Okay. Yeah. And you just said there's no masajid, there's no outward signs of these people having lived there.
No. There are from slightly later periods, from 16th, 17th century. But from these earlier periods, that we know that Muslims were actually living there. But again, there's only names of places that For example, things like Maidan.
Arabic.
Maidan is not. It's actually Persian.
Is it? Okay.
It's actually original Persian. It means a village or something of that sort. But there's quite a lot of places in Poland, in various regions of Poland, with this kind of names. There's a river called Mahomet.
Oh, mashallah. Okay.
In northern Poland. It's a very small river. It's only like 7 kilometers long, 3-4 miles or something. And there's nothing around that river to tell that, and any Muslim connection or anything.
Okay.
From archaeological sites, we know that there used to be 2 villages on either side of the river. They were both Muslim villages.
Mashallah.
But there's nothing left of them now.
Okay, mashallah.
Just the river's name.
Mashallah. Okay. And is there anything else you want to tell us about the history before I move on to kind of modern day?
We can actually see a little bit later, in the year 1670s, 17th century, there was an uprising of the Tatars that lived in Poland.
Right, okay.
Uprising, why? Because they were mostly soldiers. Their main job was soldiers. Imagine, for already then, for 200-300 years, their main jobs was to be soldiers of Polish king.
Warriors, yeah.
Interestingly, until from 14th century until World War II, there was a Muslim troop in Polish army continuously in every single war that Poland has fought. There have been Muslims fighting on the Polish side.
And we don't know about these things.
No one knows about it.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
As I said, even in Poland, most people have no idea.
Wow. And have you done research? Are there books written about this?
There are books. Unfortunately, there's not much access to them from here.
Okay.
There was a lot of books written in 1920s, 1930s, which was kind of a golden age for Islam in Poland.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which, just after Poland regained independence from Russia and Germany in 1918, after First World War, after World War One.
World War One, yeah.
World War One, yeah, sorry.
Yep. You've lost your train of thought.
Yeah, I got lost. Yes. So 1920s, 1930s, Polish Muslims have organized themselves into like a sort of organization, like an association of, they organized themselves basically. Before they were, the mosques were kind of, because Poland was sort of colonized by Russia at that time. So most mosques were governed by the Mufti of Crimea.
Okay.
Right? After the independence of Poland in 1918, Muslims didn't want to be under the governance of Crimea, because Crimea and other parts of Russia became, they started to be controlled by Bolsheviks, by communists.
Okay, and then obviously that would have been eradicating the faith anyway.
So which means any religion, practicing any religion would become very, very difficult in Russia.
Yeah.
But Poland was not controlled by communists at that time.
Okay.
Which means they became completely independent from that. And that meant another wave of immigrants from Crimea, from Russia, from
Muslim. We're talking
areas.
Muslim migration now.
Muslim migrants. Not only Muslim, obviously. There was a lot of different migrants, even to London.
Oh, wow.
We know about a large migration of intelligent, educated, and rich people from different areas of Russia. But specifically Muslims, a lot of them came to Poland or came to Turkey because they knew there's Muslims living in there.
And they would be allowed to practice their faith.
Yeah, exactly. So in Poland, they got organized quite well, actually. They started the Muslim organization in 1920 something. And what's actually very interesting, the Polish parliament has approved some laws and different status in regards to the Polish Islamic organization.
Okay.
Which means Islam actually became officially recognized religion in Poland.
MashaAllah, okay.
Which means this is until now the only non-Muslim country in the world that did that.
That's amazing. So you can go back to Poland and you can be Muslim and you can be proud of that identity.
As far as, unfortunately, most Polish Muslims don't know about it.
Right, okay.
But officially, if you actually, according to law, because the law has never been changed since 1930s, since it been created, it has never been changed.
But do you see, like, if you were to go to Poland now, would you see signs of Islam outwardly there? Or is it still a religion that's very much in its minority? Or
in most places, it's a very small minority.
Okay.
Yeah. There are some few places where, there are some historical mosques from 18th, 17th century, but there are very, very few. Okay. And even in places where Muslims, where there's a little bit more Muslims in large cities, there's still a very small minority, especially comparing to UK.
So do you see, would you see halal Polish food? Would you see families doing iftar like we do here? Would there be any of that?
You do see it in mosques and community centers, but as I said, there's very few. Like, for example, in my city of Lublin, where I come from, which is a city maybe slightly larger than Leicester, there's only one mosque.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very different to Leicester then.
Very different, yeah. The mosque has been there for, good 30 years or something, from maybe, beginning of 1990s. But it has, there's only one. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of, in comparison now then, so obviously you left Poland when you were, 17, and you've moved here. What would you say, is there a Polish Muslim community here in Leicester? Is there a Polish Muslim community in the UK? What have you discovered?
What I discovered actually last year, obviously I know there is, Muslim community which kind of came in recent years, maybe last 10 years or so. When Poland joined EU in 2003, I think it was, a lot of Polish people have moved to UK.
Okay.
Everyone knows about that.
Okay.
But not everyone knows that. Some percent of them have accepted Islam since they come here.
Ah, right. Okay. So there's you would say that there's a lot of Polish Muslims who are new to Islam rather than having been born into the faith.
Yes.
Okay.
To be honest, nowadays in Poland, most of the Muslims in Poland are either relatively new converts,
right,
or immigrants.
So have come from elsewhere and have taken residence in Poland. So what about in Leicester? One of the things about our community takeover show is that we want to bring together communities and decide, particularly because Leicester's obviously majority, although we have lots of Muslims, the majority I would say are from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and those. What happens then is the minority Muslims get lost in amongst that. So what is there out there for Polish Muslims? What are you going to say to those brothers and sisters who are in Leicester who are listening to you now?
There isn't much at the moment in the way of Polish Muslims organizing themselves into some sort of society organization or something, coming together.
Okay.
But I know there is a lot of Polish Muslims, especially Polish ladies. How do I know that? I don't know a lot of those ladies personally.
No, but obviously Sister Aisha.
My wife does know some. I have spoken to a lot of people in various masjids. People asking, "Oh, where are you from?" Poland. Oh, really? My wife's from Poland.
Oh, mashallah. Okay.
A lot of people have mentioned that to me.
So this is going to sound really ignorant of me. Would there be what would you, because obviously I come from an Indian background, so a lot of the kind of customs and traditions that are surrounded around Ramadan and surrounded around Eid come from that kind of culture.
Yes, yeah.
What do you do as a family to celebrate Eid? Is it Polish? Is it, I know your wife's not Polish. How does that work?
Well, it's a mixture, I suppose.
Okay, so what would you say is traditionally Polish that you've brought into Ramadan or you've brought into Eid?
Well, we try to mix up the food. For example, we eat a bit of Indian food. My wife's Indian, so we eat some Indian food. We eat some Polish food as well. You know, we mix it up.
Okay, so what is Polish food? You know, what would we eat at iftar time if we were in Poland? What would we eat at sahur time?
See, traditionally, actually, because remember, Poland is far from places where dates grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yes.
So back in nowadays it's easy. You can import them. You can post them in wherever DHL, wherever from Saudi Arabia, wherever. But back in the days, people you couldn't do that. Which means traditionally, in places like Russia and Poland, people never used to have dates for iftar. What they used to do, they used to eat fruit, whichever fruit was growing in that area.
Okay.
Or they used to bake a lot of different sweet breads and sweet buns and cakes and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so this is something that you still do as a family?
Yes. So we do have that kind of, in Poland we do have a lot of different types of cakes. I know a lot of Polish people prepare, sort of, because they come from this Catholic Christian tradition that, and we are used to that. So what they do, they prepare, foods which are traditionally eaten for Christmas or for Easter on that kind of Christian holidays.
Yes.
But they do them for Eid, for iftar and so on.
Oh, mashallah. So what about iftar? What would you say, if we had a Polish community here and they were all doing iftar together, what might they be eating at iftar time?
Well, as I said, I'm sure they will be eating a lot of different types of cakes.
Cakes? You think cakes is what about the savouries? What kind of savoury foods?
Our savoury foods, for example, pierogi.
What is this?
Pierogi are sort of dumplings, / pastries.
Are they vegetarian? Are they meat?
They could be all sorts of things.
And are they in like a soup?
The very interesting thing is they actually come from the same root as samosas.
Okay, now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, because samosas, a lot of, I might offend a lot of people right now.
Go on.
Yeah, but they don't actually come from India or Pakistan.
So where do these samosas come from?
Yeah, so samosas actually come from, samosas, pierogi, dumplings, all these kind of things. They actually originally come from China.
Right. Okay.
And they were brought to other parts of the world by Mongols and later on Muslim travelers. Through Silk Road. Yes.
So
in Uzbekistan, for example, in Central Asia, they call them samsa, and they bake them in a tandoor.
Mashallah,
the big oven inside the ground. When they came to India, people started frying them, I suppose.
Because that's so much healthier, isn't it, than the tandoor? Okay.
But when in Russia, in Poland, mostly nowadays we mostly boil them, so it's a bit different. Yeah.
So a bit healthy, more dumpling-like, I'm guessing.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Although there are versions which are baked as well, and you can have them sweet. You can have them with like a sweet curd cheese, or you can have them with buckwheat.
Yeah, that reminds me of traveling in the Middle East, because they also have samosas, but they have a very different concept. And cheese is quite popular.
They use the same name, but they've got completely different feelings, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you've got them with meat, with onions, with potatoes, with all sorts of different things, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so food has got to feature. There are a few more questions I was going to ask you, but going back to your history, is there anything you want to add about what came after the 17th century in Poland?
Yes. So in late 18th century, 1790s or so, Poland was, actually let's go back a little bit before. So 16th, 17th century, Poland was probably actually the largest country in Europe. Poland, okay, everyone has to look at the map now.
We have to definitely look at our maps when we finish listening to the show.
So imagine to yourself, most of today's Poland, Ukraine, Lithuania, Belarus, Latvia, and Estonia for some time at least, all of those countries were one country.
Oh wow, so that's massive.
The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, as they call it, that was all one country. All of this, around 5 countries nowadays.
Mashallah. Yeah.
So it was a massive country, all the way from the Baltic, from the Baltic to the Black Sea. It was one country, bordering Ottoman Empire, bordering Crimean Khanate. It actually had the longest Muslim-Christian border in the world. Yeah.
Wow.
And because of that, there was a massive connection. Obviously, nowadays, unfortunately, all people remember is the wars between Ottoman Empire and Poland. But there was a period of 100 years, which was a period of peace. And obviously, that period of peace brought a big connections, in terms of culture, in terms of trade. For example, if you go to Poland now, if you go, Polish horses are very, very popular in the world. A lot of, rich people from America, from Arab countries, from Kuwait, go to Poland to buy horses in summer. Okay. There's auctions of horses.
Wow.
Why is that? Because there's Arabian horses in Poland.
I was just going to say that was because that was where my train of thought was going as well. And has this come from way back when? Way back, maybe 16th, 17th century. People from Poland, Polish noblemen, they used to travel to Turkey, to Arabia, through Persia as well, to buy horses. And as well as buying horses, they were buying swords, they were buying carpets, clothing. See, Polish national clothing is actually very interesting because all Polish noblemen, around that time, 16th, 17th century, if people from Spain or people from Germany, they used to go to Poland, they were very surprised. Why is that? What were the Polish noblemen wearing?
They used to see people going to church, but wearing Turkish clothes.
Oh, the kind of robes and mashallah.
So even the name of that Polish traditional national dress, which is now even nowadays is known as the national dress of Polish noblemen. It was called żupan, which is actually coming from jubba. Yeah.
So we can see that connection.
That's exactly what it was. It was exactly if you look at pictures of emperors of Mughal Empire, Persian Empire, Ottomans. They all used to wear the same sort of clothes.
And the Polish noblemen were there as well.
And Polish noblemen were wearing exactly the same clothes.
Superb. I was just going to stop you because there's a couple of questions here for you. So it says, so they want to know about your local masajid, and it says, and whether you find it hard to be Muslim in the UK. I mean, that is a question. Do you think it's hard? I mean, obviously, Brother Abdul Majeed, I know, goes to the same local masjid as me, so I've obviously met his children, I've met his wife. And I don't know, is it difficult being at Darul Arqam, or are you just part of the family?
No, at Darul Arqam, I've been at Darul Arqam since 2010.
MashaAllah. So very much part of the furniture.
A long time, yeah. I've been there since it was in the old building as well. So
Atkinson Street, is that where it was before?
Next to Jamia Masjid, yeah.
Yeah, mashallah. And have you always felt part of the family there? Do people look at you and think, you must be different?
At Darul Arqam, to be honest, I've been like at home since I came to Leicester.
Mashallah.
I know there are some other areas, some other masjids and some other communities that, sometimes people think, you must be a little bit different, like when did you become Muslim? Like the people assume you become Muslim yesterday, and
I think people are fascinated, and I think Leicester is Leicester at the end of the day, and I think this is why shows like this are really important, because what you've done is you've given us so much information, and I think for me, I'm going to definitely have to go away and open a map, and I'm definitely going to have to see where it is all of this is coming from, because as you said, Islam has been around in these cultures and in these countries for a long time, and we often forget that. In fact, Islam has been in Poland for longer than Islam has been here, for example. A lot longer.
And interestingly, I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
When did majority of Asian community come to the UK?
Well, my father came in the 60s, and my mother came in the 70s. So I would imagine, but then I'm trying to get a hold of a sister who's going to talk about kind of the Victorians who became Muslims. And that's something that, that has been written about. And I remember reading the biography of Lady Evelyn Cobbold. So there was Islam, but I think it's not very well, I don't think it's very well known about. And I think it's important for us to raise that awareness and to go away and find out and do research, because it's important.
Yes, exactly. So as we know, there have been Muslims in Victorian times, Abdul Quilliam in Liverpool, especially in some other places in Woking. But there have been very, very few, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So as you mentioned, majority of the Asian community and some other different communities later on, they only started coming after World War II, after mostly in 60s, 70s. Before that, there was very few Muslims around Leicester.
Oh no, absolutely. And I've still got,
around the town as
I've
well.
still got memories of,
Yeah.
of kind of not having that many mosques in the area
Yes.
as well. So one of the questions here is, do you have any relation with the Bosnian Muslims? And another question is, so Bosnia, because you've not really, because that's been on my kind of radar as well. Geographically, are you close by?
No, geographically, not that close actually. There have always been some sort of connection with with the Balkans, but it's not actually that close culturally. The Bosnians became Muslims independently from where Polish Muslims came from.
Yeah, because that's mostly linked to kind of the Ottoman Empire, if I've got that correct.
That's true. Although obviously, the Polish Muslim community traditionally was linked to Ottoman Empire as well, but even more than Ottoman Empire, it was actually linked more to Crimea.
Yeah,
and which was an independent Muslim country from Ottoman Empire.
Okay,
it was next door neighbor, but it wasn't part of Ottoman Empire as such.
Okay, so it had its own kind of cultures and traditions. I mean, I'm just thinking, because I'm thinking we've got about 9 minutes left. One of the things that you spoke about is you spoke about clothing.
Yes.
Would you say, so obviously what's happening now, we're becoming a global community. So I feel very much that whichever country you travel in now, the Muslim kind of attire has become quite similar. Would you say if you were to go to Poland now, how do Muslims dress in Poland? What is the traditional dress? Are they still wearing the jubba, as you called it, or what's going on?
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
Nowadays there's not much difference as you mentioned between kind of Western, generally speaking, Western clothing. Whether you go to Saudi Arabia, people wear jeans. Whether you go to India, people wear jeans.
Okay.
In America, in UK,
If you go to Poland, the Muslims are wearing jeans, are they? Okay.
Yeah, there's not much difference.
What about on a Friday though? If they go for Juma Salah, what's the dress then?
There's still not much difference, I would say, except for maybe different hats.
Oh, right, go on. Why? Why is the hats important?
The hats kind of became symbol of kind of traditional culture. Most of other clothing like jubbas and whatever different types of clothes, they're not really worn by any community. See in Poland and in 1920s, 1930s, as I said, it was very good age for Muslims in Poland.
The golden era, you would imagine, yeah.
It was very nice. It was there was a lot of publishing going on. There was a lot of mosques opening in Poland around that time. But after World War II, when communists came into power, it all just stopped.
Dissolved, yeah.
Yeah. The Mufti of Poland unfortunately had to flee.
The Mufti of Poland. Is there still a Mufti of Poland?
There is actually, yeah.
Okay, mashallah.
As I said, the Muslim organization, officially recognized, Mufti of Poland as a head of that organization. He's officially recognized by the Polish government and parliament.
I've just remembered, because this was a question that I'd written in my book as well. So, and it's come up on the board here. It says, do we know any religious Muslim figures from Poland? Or I said, do we know any famous Polish Muslims?
Yes, and we know even some famous Polish Muslims who have lived in England.
Oh, who?
Yeah. As I said, during World War II, there have been Muslim troops in Polish army. Yeah. And also there have been Polish troops in English army, in British army, in RAF.
I didn't know that.
For example, there was a whole division in RAF made of Polish pilots.
But they were Polish, but they were not necessarily Polish Muslim.
As we found out later, some of them were actually Muslims.
Oh, mashallah. Okay.
Well, at least a couple of them.
Yeah. Even that is information that we wouldn't have known.
One of them, he was fighting, in the Battle of England during World War II, and he only passed away in 2017, I think it was.
So that's quite recent. Do we have a name? Do we know what he was called?
Yes, he was. I'll write it down later on. I've got
okay, no problem. No problem.
He's Stefan Mustafa Abramovich, his name was.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. He passed away in 2017 at the age of 102.
Mashallah.
In Manchester.
Oh wow! So is there a Polish Muslim community in Manchester?
Probably. Probably.
Okay.
I know. Obviously, his wife was also Polish Muslim.
Mashallah.
He had daughters in that. They must have grown up. Obviously, they must be quite old by now. They must be in the 80s or 90s maybe.
Of course. So there's all these. I mean, one of the things that we had hoped. You mentioned that although your parents are not Muslim, your brother is Muslim, and your brother's called Mikhail. And we were really hoping. So, and I should have said this earlier, and I've completely forgotten. We've got 5 minutes left. If Brother Mikhail is listening in, please do message in or please do call in, because we'd be interested to hear from you as well. So there are families, and there might be young families, but there are definitely people there. And I guess one of the things that I said I was going to say, and I'm going to mention it now. On our post on Instagram, we have actually tagged Brother Abdul Majeed. So if you are Polish and you are Muslim, or you are wanting to reach out and make a community, please do find out on Instagram where you need to send your messages to, because it would be really fantastic to have, maybe this time next year we can have a whole heap of brothers and sisters in here talking about kind of, Eid the Polish way here in Leicester, because that would be amazing. Sorry, brother, I interrupted. You were going to say something.
Oh, sorry. Just one more kind of historical fact from World War II. See, after World War II, when communists took over government in Poland, the government from before went into exile. So Polish government until 1990 was actually, there were those two Polish governments. There was communist government in Poland, and there was the non-communist government.
Where did they exile to?
London. So the new sort of capital in exile of Poland was London for good 50-something years.
Okay.
But the most interesting thing about that period was the Muftiat of Poland also moved to London.
So he's been living there all this time?
He has actually. Well, we know from 1940s, 1950s. I have found in the archives in the British Library, they have been publishing the newsletter sort of magazine of the Polish Muftiat in London in 1940s.
Oh wow! Okay, now that I didn't know either.
Imagine that.
I
was really surprised that the Mufti of Poland was living in London
and had a publication that was
exactly, and they were publishing in Polish.
Okay, wow, lovely.
I know the title of the booklet was in Polish and in English.
So have you managed to get a hold of any of these publications, or is it travelling to the British Library?
I think we have to make a trip to British Library, to the Library of the Polish Society in London.
Okay.
Which has been operating since before the war.
Wow. Okay.
Which is really amazing.
Yeah. No, it is amazing. And is it something? Because obviously you've got 2 sons. Is that right?
I do. Yeah.
And do you instill in them this kind of Polish Muslim identity? How do they identify?
Well, at the moment they're a little bit confused, to be honest.
Why are they confused?
One of them is nearly 8.
Okay.
The other one is 5.
And if you say to them, "Are you Polish?" what would be the answer?
No, they say, "My mum is Indian.
Yes.
My papa's Polish, and I'm English."
Okay, so they've got a real culture identity crisis going on, but they identify with being Muslim.
Oh yes. Yeah,
so would they say they're British Muslim, or would they say they're Polish Muslim, or Indian Muslim for that matter?
They mostly say they're British. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
They're only little.
Fantastic.
They're British because they speak English.
Of course.
And
do they speak Polish?
I do speak to them in Polish. They can understand it. Okay. Most of it, some of it at least.
Yeah. And what about your brother? Does your brother often come and visit? Has he got his own family in London?
He is looking to get married currently.
Mentioned here live on air.
Yeah.
Inshallah. So alhamdulillah.
He lives in London. He obviously he comes to visit us. Inshallah, he'll be here for Eid. Hopefully, inshallah.
Oh, mashallah. Okay. And does he think that there is more Leicester? Does he prefer the Leicester vibe or the London vibe?
They're both very different.
They are very different. They are. We're very Leicester through and through.
Leicester is more homely, I would say.
Okay.
I don't imagine myself living in London.
No,
it's a bit too busy.
For sure. I mean, we've got about a minute left. Is there anything you want to say to any Polish brothers and sisters who are Muslim, who are listening to this show of yours?
Yeah, we should all get in touch actually, because I know even last week someone rang me. He said, "Oh, there's some Polish people interested in knowing learning about Islam and learning a little bit more." As I said, Islam is part of our own culture, and is part of our culture of Eastern Europe and Central Europe. It's been with us for centuries. It's nothing new. Nowadays, people assume that Islam is something foreign to Poland. It's something that only just came a couple of years ago. But it's not.
No.
Muslims have been.
It's been there since the 10th century.
For centuries and centuries. You know, it's nothing new. Our own Polish culture, even the Christian culture, you know, of Poland has been influenced by Muslim cultures for years and years.
Okay, inshallah. Listen, Brother Abdul Majeed, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the show today. I've learned so much. And I'm definitely going to go away and do some more research. Inshallah, if you are Polish and you are Muslim, please do reach out on Instagram. My name is Sabiha. You've been listening to the Community Takeover Show.